Hello, everybody. Good evening. And thank you to my wonderful team of assistants for we call it the pregame show. The excitement has been building since people started signing up, and we can always feel the energy, and we love all the love you send our way. It's coming back at you. It's going to be 2 hours of high energy, lots of sharing. I'll do some Q&A, and as always, channel a bit of my guides and do a little healing as well. So it promises to be a great 2 hours. Different background for me tonight, right? I'm on the road with the Wolf's Message tour. Tomorrow is one we've really been looking for, a screening of Wolf's Message here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where Wolf was struck and killed by lightning, with a special remembrance at the exact spot where he was found by the tree, followed by the screening in downtown Plymouth. So very excited to be here. And thanks to Diane Finn, our organizer of our volunteers. I'm using her daughter's home because we have great internet. Never know what I'm going to have in the campground. We're on a tour in our bus. So it's very strange as I go around the country. Some of you may know to just put out feelers and say, hey, anybody have a house I can use for my webinars? And it's always just wonderful to meet new people that way and just be flexible. Flow, right? I shared at the Sacred Awakenings event in Colorado this last weekend, Wolf's Message and a presentation. And when I showed everybody that Wolf spelled backwards is flow, I wish you could have felt the audience's reaction. Everybody's like, oh, I never realized that. And it's all about the flow. So let's get flowing here tonight. I'd like to start. My team announced it, but let me wrap up. Not wrap up, review again some of our announcements that I'll be live in Atlanta, June 7th and 8th for a conference called Expand, Raising Your Consciousness. You have a full day with several of the authors from the Sacred Stories publications. I have my mediumship book with them. And then I have the full day of Making the Connection workshop for those who sign up for my day. July 2021-ish. That weekend, I am teaching a full weekend of learning to connect with spirit at the Omega Institute. I've done that several years in a row, and it's always a high power weekend. Big news is my new book, Making the Afterlife Connection, is available for pre-order. I just did a reading yesterday or the day before for the woman who won the drawing for April, and we have another drawing for a free reading for May for those who pre-order the book and enter your receipt number. We have a few more gifts that we're offering for people who pre-order, and you can find that by going to my website and clicking the link on the homepage for the new book. And then finally, Wolf's Message will be available for video on demand, rent for a week, from wolfsmessage.com, just like you do on Amazon Prime, where you rent a movie. That's how we've decided to do this, since it's going to be streamed by Gaia TV starting at the end of June, but we wanted to make it available in that video on demand. So my team's been working really hard to make that capability available to everybody, and we're very excited to share it. As you probably heard, we won the Illuminate Film Festival with our film. So wow. We knew it was a wonderful film, but to have that validation from the audience is wonderful. So I look forward to anybody anywhere in the world being able to watch it starting this Friday at wolfsmessage.com. So that's it for my announcements. The rest will be sharing and teaching and high energy. But let's begin by all of us coming together as a group. This is what we love about our Awaken Way community, this sense of kindred spirits coming together to celebrate knowing who we are. We're souls, each living our individual stories here, and that's what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight. So if you join me, I know we've all pretty much been busy all day going our separate ways, but let's just close our eyes for a moment, take a nice relaxing breath and settle in. Release any tension, any dense energy, anything that doesn't serve you on the exhale. Just let it go. Already relaxing into this evening. We move our awareness to the heart. Just breathe slowly and deeply. And acknowledge that you are so much more than your story. We're grateful for these lives that we have, grateful for our many blessings, and for gatherings like this, where we're reminded that we are also beyond the story, beings of light, fully connected to each other. And as a result of this evening, may we all grow and learn to shine our lights more and endure less suffering here as we find tools and practices that help us make that shift as necessary to the soul's perspective. We ask our guides and loved ones in spirit to gather near to help us listen and hear exactly what we need this evening that will help us. And with gratitude again for answering the call to be here, we just affirm, so it is. Oh, that always helps me get settled into this. So now we're all connected, entangled. I know this morning, what was it? I made a note to myself to let Christy, my YouTube content curator, know that I was still on track to play a special podcast this Sunday with an interview I did with our director, Jim Spruill of Wolf's Message. It's going to be a great podcast, so you might want to make a note, noon Eastern Sunday. And just as I made the note, I got an email from Christy asking me about that. So this entangled thing, down to the minute, we were both thinking the same thing. Often when you have those moments with your loved ones and your friends, you say, who thought of who first? And really, since we're all connected, it just happens at the same time, which is pretty cool. So as always, I like to start with stories from the greater reality, just tales that get us thinking of how connected we really are. This one is not an evidence-based story from a reading, but it just made me chuckle, so I wanted to share it with you. I usually don't give people's names, but this is from Kelly, and I think she may be, I know she's joining us, and you'll see why. She sent me an email just the other day. She said, I had to share this moment. I was feeling a little disconnected from spirit, and just know that all of us get that way. And I decided to do a tarot reading. The top 3 cards represent me. The top right cards represent a message to me from spirit, and the bottom cards represent how to deepen my connection. I'm not that well versed in tarot. I have a deck, and every once in a while, I'll hear my guides say, pull a card. And I do, and it is so meaningful. So I hope you all will get yourselves a deck of any kind of oracle cards and be guided by spirit that way. It's a really great way to hone your intuitive abilities. But Kelly said, as I was reading the cards on the bottom, I was hearing intuitively, travel, determined search, magic, tools available, and I clearly heard channel, and lastly, teacher. As I was reflecting on it, in that very moment, my iPad sent me a notification from Gmail. I usually put it on Do Not Disturb, but not today. So she gets this ding, and it was from Suzanne Giesemann, asking if I was seeking a deeper connection with spirit. Holy moly, yes, she wrote. Now I saw the cards were a teacher of channeling who is traveling. That would be me. I got goosebumps already. You can't get clearer than that. I registered for tonight immediately. So Kelly, I don't know, you could come over here and teach this with me, right? You're already tuned in, you're listening, you are living awakened, which is one of our main topics tonight. But I love that how she was aware of feeling disconnected and turned to something that allowed her to activate her intuition and use that and got a message right away. That's the spirit world giving you instant feedback saying, yeah, use us to connect. So welcome, Kelly, and everybody else. Now, this one just happened yesterday. So it was yesterday that I did that winning drawing reading. This one I just have to share with all of you. So I did the reading, and Ty and I decided to go out with the dogs and take them and find a dog park somewhere. So we get the dogs in the car. I have just finished this reading for 45 minutes to an hour, and maybe not completely grounded. And we'd been at this campground for 2 days already. And so you leave the campground, you go down this little narrow road, and you come out to more of the main road. And traffic is very busy coming in from both sides. And you have to sit and sit and sit and wait to be able to pull out safely. So the last 2 days, we sit there and you see all the traffic coming from both sides. So I just finished this reading. We come to the very same spot, and the cars from both sides are moving in slow motion. And I'm looking at them. It was like a video, well, like in Wolf's Message, there's several scenes where you see the cars in Plymouth, Massachusetts going in slow motion. It's a video thing, but this was happening in real life. And I looked at Ty and I said, what's going on? Am I still in the twilight zone from doing my reading? And he says, no, Suzanne, we're now in a school zone and it's Monday. And the traffic there were signs on the other side of the hill where I couldn't see it that said 20 miles an hour. So the previous 2 days, everybody's going 45 miles an hour, zooming over the hill. And all of a sudden, everybody was so law abiding, 20 miles an hour. And, this is one of the funny things that happens when you get on this spiritual path. I get around people and we tend to immediately think, oh my gosh, it's a sign from spirit. You know, I remember I can see Bev on screen. She and I were in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where I am now, doing a workshop. And I went to dim the lights and the lights came back on. And then we dimmed the lights and the lights came back on again. And everybody in the class says, it's spirit, because that's the immediate go-to when you go down this path. And I looked at Bev and I said, I don't think so. She went out in the hall and it was the hotel personnel. Every time we turned out the lights, it was turning them out in the hall and they would turn them back on again. So that's my teaching from this little lesson is, yes, it's great to think first, oh, it's a spirit thing. I'm seeing the world in slow motion, or they're playing with our lights. But we do need to use some discernment so that when it really is a sign from spirit, we appreciate that. All righty. I'm going to share some slides from a reading that I did some time ago. If anybody who's joining us tonight was on my recent Caribbean cruise, you will have recognized this reading and some of the teaching that I'm doing later, but I wanted to share it with the bigger group in this monthly connection because it's really just so worthy of sharing. This was a reading for a woman who was new in my community, and her husband had passed, and so many of my friends in the community kept saying, you need to do a reading for, I'll call her Mary. Have you done a reading for Mary? She's really grieving her husband. So many people said it that I reached out to Mary and I said, how about I gift you a reading? And she came to my house in person for it. And right away, I sensed her husband and how he passed. And it was just one of those beautiful connections that we hope for all the time. And she was wide-eyed. And let me pull up my screen share now to share some photos that I made to back up what I'm talking about here. Okay. Oops, hang on. We want this over here. Okay. My team, can you see the screen with the slide? You're seeing it, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So in the reading.
I'm so sorry, Suzanne. I'm only seeing it where it says Zoom. Is everybody else seeing the slide?
Okay, somebody turn your mics on. I see my slide with a little bird on it. Stephanie, do you see the bird? You don't. Wow. I'm so glad I asked. Let me go out of screen share. And you guys can mute yourself. I'm going to try to share again. And we'll go here. Do y'all see the bird now? On a windowsill? Okay. Yes. So I'm doing the reading for Mary. And I love when those across the veil tell us in a reading what signs they send. I said, your husband says he's sending you a songbird to get your attention. And she put her hands to her mouth and she said, oh my gosh, this little bird has been pecking at my window all day for 3 weeks. And I checked in with her husband. I said, now he hasn't become the bird, but he's using that bird to get your attention, to say, I'm around, I still exist. And she says, okay, well, all right, I acknowledge that. And I said, I guarantee you that bird is going to go away, okay? So we have to trust spirit when that happens. And then I said, your husband is telling me now, if I can get my slides to change here, which they're not, hang on. Oh, I hate when that happens. Oh, I know how to do it right here. There we go. I said, he also tells me that he plays with the lights. She said, I've noticed that. And I said, well, give him credit for that because that is him. So now I'll tell you that after the reading, she shared the recording with her grown sons. And one of them said, Mom, that's ridiculous that Dad can't play with the lights. And just at that moment, as she's telling him that, the lights over the table started flickering in a very rhythmic pattern and stopped when they stopped talking about it. So, yeah, goosebumps, I know. I love how they do that. So this son did the coolest thing. He recorded himself making a video and sent me the video to thank me for how the reading helped his mom. I thought that was so sweet that I started typing an email back to him to thank him. And as I was typing the email, I sensed Mary's husband. He dropped in on me, which I love drop-ins because you don't expect it. And you can always say, what evidence do you have for me? And he says, that's my son in the video. So I knew this was Dad. So I started typing and I said, hey, we'll call him John. Your dad is here as I'm typing this. He's showing me a little boat. And I know that you all used to go boating. It's not a great big one, just one. And he's sharing that there were so many happy memories when you used to go out on this boat. And now he's showing me a pool table. And I know that you and your dad used to play pool. For those of you who are mediumship students or practicing mediums, think about how your evidence comes through for your recipients. I learned this from my mentor, Mavis Patilla, when I watched her work. And I set the goal, I want to say, and I know that you played pool. Not, did they play pool? Or I think you played pool because I think that's what I'm seeing. It's so wonderful when the connection is that clear that you can state with confidence. And then your client, your sitter, really knows that they are right here. Well, then the dad showed me, and I typed this to him as he's showing it, typed it to his son. Your dad is showing me this 8x10 photo frame. I knew it wasn't 4x6, 3x5. It was 8x10. And it has a picture of him in it. And he says, it belongs on the wall, son. This blew me away. I sent all this to the son. He emailed me back and he said, yes, we had that boat. And we had such happy memories of that. And we had a pool table in the basement. I used to love playing pool with my dad. But the picture frame, I have this 8x10 picture of my dad, and I just picked it up yesterday. And I was thinking of hanging it on the wall in my bedroom, but I thought it might make me too sad to walk by it every day and be reminded of my dad. How beautiful is that to hear straight from Dad, it belongs on the wall, son. Whoa, goosebumps again. I'm picking them up from all of you because this is not just, oh, there's some photo of your dad in a frame. This is evidence that he's there with him, hearing his thoughts, watching what he's doing. Now apply this to your life and all of your loved ones. This is why I love the evidence section of these 2-hour webinars, because they remind us how very real all of this is. Now, what was really cool, a moment I'll never forget, is when I was typing up my notes to share this part of the reading several years ago in a monthly connection, because this is just part 1 of Mary's reading. I was typing my notes in capital letters, like my notes that I have here for tonight, 18 fonts, so I don't have to use glasses. And when I got to the point where I wrote, her husband passed a year ago, it kept reverting to small letters, as you see on the screen here. And I would back up and hit caps lock. Her husband passed a year ago, and it reverted to small letters. And suddenly I got this snag from Spirit. I backed up, I hit caps lock, and I typed, and her husband is still right here. And it stayed in capital letters. How cool is that? So that's like flickering the lights and sending a bird, which, by the way, yes, never came back after he let his wife know in a reading that he's still right here. So I just love this story. And what was really cool was finding out, I know it was a setup to do that reading from her husband, that her husband across the veil and her sons and Mary found out about me by watching my documentary Messages of Hope on Amazon Prime. They watched it together while he was still here in physical form. And he even said to them, is it showing up here or do I have to click one more time? Yeah, that's what he said to him. Now that's someone you can trust, because he saw the military uniform in those pictures that are in Messages of Hope documentary. And can you imagine saying that to your family and then needing that very same medium to make the connection with your beloved family? I thought that was pretty cool, how spirit works. So that was part one of Mary's story. And it was just last August, not even a year, that we in our community got the very tragic news that Mary's son, not the one that sent me the video, her other son, was in a car with his wife and two boys and was hit by an oncoming truck. And her son was killed, and his son, her grandson, was killed. His wife survived, his other little son survived. And so Mary went to stay with her daughter-in-law and grandson for 6 months as they got their legs back under them. And when she came back, I'll just change the picture here. That was just a remembrance of her family. When she came back, our community threw a party to welcome her home and let her know how supported she was. And everybody gave her a card with an offer of some way that they could support her in person. And my offer was to do another reading for her when she was ready and see if we could connect with her son and her grandson. And she came for that reading not too long ago. And she showed me a picture. She said, Suzanne, the card that you chose had poppies on it. If you look in the center of this photo, you'll see the card I gave her full of poppies. But look at the table it's on. It's on a poppy rug, and there's a poppy pillow on the chair. Poppies are her thing. Poppies were her husband's thing. I had no idea, but this is how we're always being influenced by spirit. People give me gift cards for thank you cards to use all the time, sets of cards, many of them made by the person that gives them to me. And I was just looking through the cards. Well, what would be a good one to give Mary with my offer of a reading? And I was drawn to the one with the poppies. And now I see why. I shared this with you so that you become more aware that many of your actions when you're guided to do things are coming from an inspiration from spirit, because it will affect other people in ways that you may not be aware. I'm very grateful to say that in that reading, I made a beautiful connection with her son and her grandson, and very easy to differentiate the two grandsons, because I could feel the personality of one, and the one across the veil, and he was telling me what his brother was like, very different from him. So very healing for her to hear from them. But then her husband also came in, of course, to say, all us men are together over here. You know, don't worry, they were meant by me. And I recognized him right away from the reading before and the drop-in visit. And he decided to give me some evidence. He said, there's a card on my desk in the house with an important saying on it. And I remember saying to Mary, he's showing me what looks like a stick in a little round base. It's like a stick in a round base, and it's on the desk next to this card. I think it's a pen in a holder. She says, I don't remember that at all. Well, she got home and she remembered it. Look at this picture. Look at the pen in the round base right next to the card. And he's the one that said this has a very special meaning. Do not be anxious about anything. And in the reading, he said to her, you need to stop worrying so much and just calm down. And that was the exact message that was in the card that he referred to. And then as we were wrapping up the reading, he said, now, I don't want her to be anxious, but I need her to be very, very careful when she leaves our community within the next few days. And there have been some accidents right at this traffic light where we leave our community. And I said, I see that there's danger for you. And I don't usually like to make people nervous. Do no harm is my #1 motto. But your husband is very clear that you need to pay attention on that stretch right outside there. Guys, do you know that the very next day she was rear-ended right at that light? I don't know how to explain these things and if it was destined to happen. And so he saw it, but it happened. And that kind of thing is kind of stunning. Just shows the connection of the web that we're all a part of, doesn't it? But I love sharing these evidential stories with all of you to remind us how very real the greater reality is, and how interactive, and how much your loved ones who have passed know what you're up to and can manipulate this world. I mean, that thing with the capital letters was stunning. But what's really cool is how they put in my awareness to know to try a different phrase there instead of he passed a year ago, he's still right here. Pretty cool. All right. How about a more recent reading that I did for a client that had been on the waiting list for probably 6 years now? And I started by apologizing for the long wait. And she said it couldn't have come at a better time. Now, I can see my assistant, Patty, she's the one that schedules my readings, and she gets to hear this when she schedules it, how people say, oh my gosh, the timing is amazing. We hear this all the time, don't we, Patty? Yeah, she's nodding. And so this woman said it couldn't come at a better time. Well, I don't know why, but I know it's going to come up in the reading, but I don't know how. So we start the reading, and right away I feel her mother across the veil, and her mother launches towards my client, her daughter, and gives her this great big hug. And she starts giving me evidence, and she said, yeah, that's my mom, that's my mom. And her mother's main message was, everything's going to be all right. Now, this is the thing with messages from the spirit. They sound like things we want to hear, but that's why we get them. It's because we need to hear these messages. So for mediums who are new, you may think, well, all they're saying is, I love you, or I'm fine here. Well, what else are they going to say, right? They're going to say what's on their heart. So I think 3 times in that reading, Mom said, everything's going to be all right. I even summarized with that. But Mom also showed me a lot of moving boxes around my client, and this motion, which I knew meant she was traveling or leaving. And in fact, the client was in the midst of a move that was unexpected and was causing her a lot of stress. So Mom knew about that, of course, and that's why she was trying to reassure her daughter. So after the reading was over, I said to my client, will you tell me now why this couldn't have come at a better time? You're going to love this. She said, yes. The day before Patty called to schedule the reading, she had a very vivid dream. She was in a coffee shop, and 2 friends walked up to her and said very clearly, your mom wants to give you a big hug and let you know that everything's going to be all right. Oh, exactly what came through in the reading. I love the spirit world. I love being their voice. I hope that this helps you to celebrate what you are a part of, and just talk to your loved ones and know that whatever challenges you're going through, they're aware of them, and they can inspire you with thoughts and ways to overcome any challenges. I have a question here on my notes. Why do we do mediumship? Hopefully that's very clear to you now, but I was reminded by a recent email from a dear friend of ours named Will, who may be tuning in tonight, who came on our Mediterranean cruise with his partner, Audie, who they have become dear, dear friends. I've done readings for both of them. And I called Will up on the stage and I said, would you share with the audience how your reading, connecting with your wife who passed, affected you? And he just reached out recently to remind me. He said that was so meaningful to him because he said he only had 2 comments. The reading was calming and healing. And that certainly is a huge part of why we do mediumship, for the healing and to bring people peace. I'm reminded by my guides right now of Wolf's final poem where he prayed, peace and tranquility flow like water. That was his prayer. And mediumship brings that, peace and tranquility and healing. And then Will wrote, I meant by those 2 comments that my life opened up again, and I'm able to love my beautiful present partner without regret for what I have lost, but with thanksgiving for what both partners and I have gained. Thank you so much for the gift you've given to us all. But it's the gift of mediumship, and it's the gift of those across the veil, and they need a voice. And that's what a medium provides. So I love that many of you here are practicing mediums and always learning to connect even more clearly, if only with your own loved ones. I put that in quotes because what could be more important than connecting with our own loved ones? Yeah. So that is the end of the evidence section this month. Yep, it almost always goes exactly a half hour. It's kind of interesting how Spirit orchestrates that. And now we'll move on to some of the things that I promised in our emails that went out. This next section comes with more slides because I just feel they evoke the emotion that you guys see those orbs flying around behind me just then? Boy, I sure did. That was big. Wow, cool. Okay, so if you rewind the film after we send you the link, you're going to see them. I usually don't see them on camera, but that was pretty cool. All right. Wonder who it is. Anyway, I promised you the difference between being awakened and living awakened. And there is a difference. We'll be talking a little later about the difference our word choice makes. And the reason I'm sharing that is because we're now going to be having a discussion about what it's like to live awakened. To be awakened, let me ask the guides to help me with this. So to be awakened is to remember what your soul has never forgotten, that you are a soul, that you are intimately interconnected to all other souls, and you are indivisibly connected to source, your source, our source, the field of all consciousness. That awakening can happen in an instant, but we can lose it because we're human and we get sucked into the drama. So I often jokingly say, if anybody ever comes up to you and says, well, I'm awakened, run the other way, because that's a lot of ego talking. We can know that we've had an awakening, but once you do, there's no need to brag about it. There's just this gratitude and so much humility to be aware that now we have a responsibility to shine our light and to help others and to continue growing, because we know we're going to slip at some point because we are human and very prone to making mistakes. That's why we're here in a human body. But to live awakened is to have had that realization and then say, now I remember what that feels like. Now I remember who I am. I want to live with that awareness as often as possible, but know that I don't have to be perfect and that life will still be challenging, but that I am here to grow as a result of those challenges. So to be awakened is a beautiful thing, and it happens in moments of grace and as sometimes as a result of our efforts through commitment to meditation and monitoring our thoughts and such. But to live awakened is to know that even when we slip and may fail in human terms at certain things, that we can just get right back in the flow again. That's living awakened. And the reason I came to use those terms is from an email I got from a member of our Awakened Way community. And she said, I wanted to let you know, as I started reading your book, The Awakened Way, for the third time, something struck me. I love that that book is the kind that people will want to go back to. I've just finished this week another book that's coming out from Hay House next year. It's called Now You're Listening, and it has a lot of channeled information from Sanaya and higher. And as I've been proofreading it over the last couple of weeks, the energy is so divine that I keep wanting to go back to it. So I'm excited to share all of this with all of you. But she said that as she was reading it for the third time, something struck her. In the first chapter, you discuss belief systems. Remember, we call that our BS. You discuss belief systems and how they can make us feel as if we are living in hell. True, right? Sometimes we went off the planet. That's hell. And it's our belief that keeps us in that state. She wrote, so I went through each of the points you have in the book to see where I stand as far as awakening. And I came to see that out of all of your points, I can honestly say, I feel I am living awakened. And I love that she wrote that, because until I read her email, I hadn't been using that term. I have been saying living the awakened way, but she just shortened it to living awakened. So I went through the list of realizations that she wrote to me. She compared how she feels compared with a lot of BS that's on the list in the book for those who feel they're living in hell. And I felt this would be a great exercise to let you see how you're feeling. How are you living now? These are guideposts. These are goals. And certainly that book, these webinars, and so many things we can do help us get there. But it's really much easier to get to living awaken when something is modeled for you. So I just love that this is actually Sherry, I'll give her first name here, who sees the difference in herself. This is the thing. She was not this way in the past, and this is how she is now. So I will share my screen again because I have put this to slides. All right, girls, are you seeing the traffic sign again? Okay, good. So there's the book, The Awakened Way, and the list of what it's like to be very human versus a spirit is in there. And so the difference between being awakened versus living awakened we talked about. And here goes Sherry's moments of realization. So think about this with yourself. Number one, I now love silence. I remember my sister went to live with someone for a month when she was in between homes. And she said, Suzanne, this woman plays the TV 24 hours a day. She has to have noise all the time. And I thought, wow, that must be hard to put up with. But I understand it. I got out of a relationship, my first marriage, many years ago. And I couldn't handle silence at first because I had to then listen to my own thoughts. Can you relate to this? But living awakened means you're willing to listen to your thoughts, process them, and release them. That doesn't mean you don't have less than positive thoughts that bubble up, but now you're no longer afraid of them because you realize they flow through you. And you realize you're supported. So this is what we're going to do with all these points. I'm just going to talk about them and ask you to kind of look at where you are. Major point here, there's no judgment in any of this. As you can see, I used to have noise all the time, but it's beautiful when now you can say, now I love silence. I know I agree with Sherry in this one. I absolutely love silence. Does that mean I don't love to blast the radio and dance around the house sometimes? I love that too, but I'm no longer afraid of silence. So with each of these, if you don't identify with the phrase, if you don't love silence, please don't judge yourself. Be curious. Wow, why don't I love silence? Why would it be helpful to have silence? And the answer to that is, so you can now start to not only hear your own thoughts, but hear the inspiration of spirit, hear the guidance of spirit. This is what my book, Now You're Listening, is all about. Tuning in and hearing that voice inside. So beautiful first one there. Living awakened. Whoops, let's go back one. I very rarely crave anything except more love and peace. That's beautiful. Take it from me, a woman who wrote a book called Conquer Your Cravings. I know what it's like to crave things. I still have cravings. I do. But they're usually indicative of when I'm really in human mode. And a few deep breaths and surrendering helps with that, but absolutely crave love and peace more than anything. It's beautiful to know, though, that as you live surrendered to spirit, the cravings really do lessen. Because what we are craving is peace, not necessarily chocolate. All right. Okay, next one. Oh gosh, my temper has softened significantly. I judge way less. I love that I can see my girls on the screen and they're nodding and identifying with this. I will tell you that today I found myself flaring up just a few hours ago. It was temper that was ugly. And I just kept saying, where's this coming from? What did I pick up? And that's usually what it is, my friends. We've picked up some energy that either triggered something in us. In any case, we're just off balance. So I said to Ty, I'll be back. I'm going to go meditate for 10 minutes. And I just went and meditated on balance and releasing whatever was in me that was causing this temper. And it completely went away. So living awakened doesn't mean, again, that we're perfect. And as Sherry said, my temper has softened significantly. So living awakened means you're aware of behaviors that are not aligned with the soul. Doesn't mean you're perfect, but you catch it and have tools and use those tools to come into alignment. And that way you find that peace and tranquility. And the judging way less, this really goes hand in hand here, because when you stop judging yourself, then you stop judging others. So their anger, temper, that's usually coming from a feeling within that you're not loved, you're not safe. So when you start coming into alignment, getting balanced inside and centered, you can come to love yourself, and then you just have no need to judge anybody else. All righty, next one. Let's see. My problem is everybody's faces are right over my words here. Let me move all this down. I don't permit others' anger to affect my energy field. Well, you know that probably 90% of you who are registered for this are what are called empaths, meaning you're highly sensitive to energy and you pick up other people's energy. Do you notice that in yourself? Do you get kind of ill at ease when you're in loud crowds or around fluorescent lights or where there's a lot of noise? That's an empath. And it means you're sensitive and you're an emotional person and you love to take care of people. But it also means that if somebody around you flares up, you can get angry too or upset. I'm like, number one, I identify with this. So a really helpful phrase for this is not my anger or not my whatever. When you recognize, wait, I'm feeling pretty calm inside. And so what do? You just put up a beautiful screen of energy in your aura, not my anger. Send that person love and breathe in from above and below to balance the energies and come back to peace. But living awakened means that you become aware that it's not your energy and you take action to change it. Y'all can feel free to put in the chat any comments. I hope this is helpful to you all. I think these are great reminders of what we can strive for and what's possible for us. Okay. Oh, here's a good one. I love myself completely. I love that Sherry saw that and felt that way. I'm reminded of my wonderful friend Lynette Setzgorn, who so many of you know because she worked for me for quite a while. She said when Sanaya, my guides, used to end their daily messages, as they still do, with the phrase, "You are so very loved," she used to just go. She thought that was just ridiculous and that it was a silly thing to say, and that I'm not so very loved. She couldn't take that on, and now she can. So if any of you can't love yourself, that is, with all due respect, definitely BS. That's your belief system, right? somebody told you that, or some little voice inside said you aren't worthy, I'm glad you're here tonight, because the energy from the guides, hopefully you'll feel it embracing you and everybody else in this community, to understand we cannot not be worthy. I hope I said that right. We definitely are all so very loved, because we are expressions of Source itself. So aim to get to the place where you love yourself completely. It is possible. Again, any of these indicators of living awakened, if you don't identify with them now, and you feel something in your heart that says, but I would like to live that way. If any one other person has achieved that, you can too. And here's Sherry, who wrote this list, who was not like this in the past, but as a result of making the commitment, doing the 3 E's of educating herself about the awakened way, experiencing it through this expanded state and how loved she is through meditation, and engaging higher consciousness by talking to her guides and her loved ones, she's grown to this point, and so can all of us. I am content and mostly unbothered. I love that mostly, right? This one I think really doesn't need too many comments, except I would just comment on the mostly part, which is a beautiful acknowledgement that life flows in waves, and there are going to be some that swamp us from time to time, and that is absolutely fine, and we just climb back on the surfboard. All right, what's the next one? I know that others' opinions about me are just that, their opinions, reflections of their own belief systems, not my reality. That's a hard one as humans, isn't it? To realize, because most of us empaths also are pleasers, and we are pleasers because we want people to love us so much. So the beautiful part about living awakened is you realize that's the human part that needs that or feels it's necessary, but the soul already knows we are love itself, completely connected to each other and to all that is. And that each person is going to have their own experiences. We'll talk about this later tonight. And you cannot control their opinions. So to strengthen that self-love is to love that person anyway and continue to love yourself. What a beautiful reality that creates for ourselves. Okay. Let's see. This one goes hand in hand with that one, doesn't it? I no longer require anyone's approval. If you like it, okay. If not, still okay. I'm asking my guides to comment on this, and they're saying no comments necessary, right? That really goes hand in hand with the last one. And then, I don't compare myself to others. Sherry, I think you're a saint. But this is definitely living awakened, to not compare yourself to others. And this is so important for anybody on a spiritual path, because we look at certain people and we think that that's the goal if they're achieving certain things, but we don't see all sides of people. Lynette often reminds me that people look at me and think I'm perfect, and I'm not. Ask my husband. And then they look at me and say, oh, this is the way, you know, I need to be a medium like that. And I look at other mediums and say, you know, we're just different. We're each unique. But to compare yourself to others is to not acknowledge that each one of us is absolutely blossoming exactly at the rate your soul knows is perfect for you. So to compare yourself with others is like comparing yourself with runners in a race who started at different places in the race. It's not a race. It's not a competition. We've all started at different places on this journey. So just enjoy and give gratitude for where you are now. If we can get to the point where we don't compare ourselves to others, wow, that's pretty awesome. I accept compliments well and take them to heart because I am at peace in my core. That's a skill, and it's a beautiful one. I love when we're around people who are learning to accept compliments. You can see them bristle, right? Like, oh, I can't accept that. And then they're like, okay, thank you. So wherever you are in regards to this aspect of living awakened, may this become your reality easily. Let's see, we have just a few more of these. Living awakened. I've learned to seek peace from within and not rely on outside sources. This is huge for living awakened, especially in these times where everywhere we go, people are talking about how chaotic our world is. I feel our world has always been chaotic. Certainly, certain circumstances in the United States have led things to be seemingly more chaotic, and now our news is just in the face all the time. And so what a skill it is to immediately turn within, and with a few slow, deep breaths, find that center and that part of you that never changes, and know that is accessible always, no matter what. So to depend on others' opinions of yourself, to depend on others to love you, to depend on others who are very human to help you find peace is not reliable. The core of you is completely reliable, and you find that core through sitting quietly every day. Try my sip of the divine. All right. Oh, this is a good one. I can lay my technology down at any time without angst. It's very eye-opening to go without your cell phone or your iPad for a while and notice how often you reach for it or look for it or want to turn it on. And then ask, why do I need to check my email, or why do I need to check my texts? Or when you finish checking email, what is the next thing do you have to look at to be stimulated from outside instead of within? So bravo to Sherry for being able to do that. I have trouble reaching Lynette these days because she has turned off all notifications on her phone. She's not doing texting and such. Good for her. So it would be an interesting experiment, wouldn't it, to just play with lessening our dependence on technology. Good stuff here. Almost through it all. I know my life is an everlasting cycle of evolving and that life is eternal. How do we come to that knowing? Personal experience in meditation and educating yourself through programs like this, of course, videos online and books, but it's that personal experience. So this comes with time, or by grace. The soul already knows it. It just comes into your awareness. And I believe this is the last one of our cues for living awaken. I know now that my non-physical loved ones are with me always. They are never gone from my being. This is huge, that they're not in some far off place, that they are here in your energy field at all times, but not necessarily paying attention to you, just as you may not be paying attention to them at all times. But here at your beck and call, and once you really feel them around, you'll know that they are always here. Yeah, my guides say go ahead and talk about this. I was going to wait till next month, but I had an event while I was at the Illuminate Film Festival that cleared 2 major blocks in me that I was not aware that I had. And since then, I know and feel Susan and Wolf and our director, Jim's son, Dakota, with me here all the time. I've always known Susan was around, but not as present as guides, ready to talk at any time. I'm beyond thrilled, but it's absolutely validating the teaching that we've been sharing for years now, that there is only here in awareness. There is nowhere else to go but to be here in awareness. Does this mean that all they're doing is answering my beck and call? Not at all. But we're so entangled that we just shift our awareness to that other channel where they reside. It's another frequency on the network of consciousness, and we can communicate. Set that as a goal. Sit in the silence, and you can learn to tune into your loved ones just as clearly. I know that I'm looking at some of my assistants here. Patty has a beautiful connection with her daughter, Lauren, across the veil. Stephanie has reestablished connection with her daughter, possibly not ongoing all the time, but they are here. There is nowhere else to be but here in consciousness. We can address those in questions later if anybody wants to. I think this would be a good time to stop and do some Q&A, Stephanie, because I want to move on to this, to the keys of living a life of flow. How do you get to that point that Sherry has gotten to? And that's what I promised you for this evening. So how do you get there? That's what we'll talk about. But let's break up all this talking that I've been doing with some questions from some of you for a while.
Okay, a lot of great questions. Thank you all. And I really go through them and say a little prayer that I'm picking just the right ones for this group tonight. So let's start simple. Let's start for some folks who maybe this is their first monthly connection or newer to you. So this one is coming from Sonia, and she says, I am newer to you. How should I begin? What book of yours should I begin with? And she's newer to the community.
Okay. Well, good. My guests are closed. My hosts are closing the door because it's freezing in here. Where to begin? By using your intuition as you go to, I would say, Amazon or the books page on my website, and look at all the books I've written and ask within, which book do I start with? When people come to a products table at my events, they say, well, which one should I start with? Now, I could tune into their aura and tell, but I love to say, which one is speaking to you? And then they know right away. So absolutely start tuning in intuitively, go there, and multiple books there to choose from, and then see where that leads next.
I
Okay.
just love that. That's just basically starting with your intuition, which I think is beautiful. All right. Okay, we have several in the mental health category. It is Mental Health Month, May, and Wolf's Message Film, etc. Okay, this is Tara. She asks, do you have any insight about the spiritual significance of mental illness, such as OCD, as an example?
Spiritual significance of that. Let me ask the guides. Oh, yeah. They say it is all about the lessons that this affords. So when we compare ourselves to what we consider the norm, everything is relative. And we can say, would it be helpful to not be dealing with this imbalance? What is it going to take to get to that point? And the lessons come in about judgment, about comparing, everything that we were talking about labels such as normal versus disabled or developmentally handicapped. So everything is an opportunity for loving ourselves no matter what, and giving more love to others despite whatever condition they're dealing with.
That's fantastic. And it's so much the themes of Wolf's Message, and just beautiful. All right, this one's coming from Carmen. How can we pray or meditate in such a way to encourage the extended population to be awakened as well? In my own journey, I find news disparaging, which you talked about a little bit earlier, or I find the disparaging news of the day hard to keep my vibration up. How can we bring everyone up?
A rising tide raises all boats. Perhaps you've heard that expression. The first thing is releasing the need to heal everyone and to focus on yourself. And remember that slide I showed that showed one light bulb and the lights around it? As one light goes on in a room, the whole room becomes a little brighter. As that light turns up, it becomes brighter. And we start to light up those around us. So really just focus on yourself and shining your light brighter without feeling that you have to change everybody, recognizing they're all on their own paths. Their soul is absolutely fine. And that if something were supposed to be different than it is, it would be. Arguing with reality as it is brings suffering. So we say, this is where humanity is at this time. It is an improvement over hundreds of years ago. We are making progress. If I can shine my light brighter and lift up those around me as a result, then I will have made a difference in this incarnation. So that's the goal, to help ourselves, those in our immediate vicinity, those we can affect around the world, but we are not here to completely heal the world. We let all of us together make that happen.
Suzanne, Stephanie lost power.
I see that.
She'll get back as soon as she can. I can pull up the question
Hi, Bev.
box here.
Back in your own role, your old role now.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Jamie asked, is there a difference in how loved ones communicate with us based on their age? So a small child compared to a parent, for instance.
When we're speaking of mediumship, it is soul to soul communication. And in my personal experience, and that's all I can speak of here in this question, there is no difference. The difference comes in the kind of evidence that we get. If I get a very young child who does not have a history of work or what kind of a student they were or a lot of memories, I can pass along their messages, but not a whole lot of evidence to back it up. But certainly I can pass along their personality and meaningful messages. An older person, many more memories that they can share, but the way they communicate is the same. It's still soul to soul, so no difference.
Thank you. Okay. I didn't have time to look over the list ahead of time, so.
So Bev uses her intuition to choose just the right questions.
Okay.
I can see Melissa has joined us, and she did a great job of moderating questions for last Sunday's Q&A podcast. So check that out. There was a very powerful guided meditation channel from my guides and the Q&A. So that one's a good one.
I have a question.
Go for it, Patty.
This is from Richard. What is the difference between love and kindness?
Wow, we gotta have to ask the guides that one. So the guides show me that love is the natural outcropping of being connected. It is what we feel, what we experience as a result of being completely connected to each other. Kindness is the impulse that arises from this knowing that we are all connected. So love comes first. It's the very essence of who and what we are, connected beings of light. And the kindness is the natural impulse to express the love that we are. Patty to the rescue. Good job. Bev, you have one?
Okay. Janelle asked, how do we recognize the help we receive from our loved ones in the afterlife?
Sometimes we don't realize it. We don't realize that thoughts were put in our head. But the best habit we can get into is ending each day with gratitude for the wonderful things and blessings that have come our way, and say, if anybody over there pulled any strings to make that happen, thank you so much. Other times, there is simply this knowing in your heart, that was my loved one that helped me with that. Or you've already asked for it in advance and it came to pass.
Perfect. Actually, I have a question. I watched a documentary yesterday, and it was about, is it doppelgangers? You have a person who looks identically like you, but they're not related at all. And I wonder, is that a soul thing? Do two people decide to do that before incarnating, or is it just a random occurrence?
Oh, guys are taking my breath away. They say it is both, and that there are no chance meetings, no chance encounters, and that anytime you have an encounter like that, just go within and ask, what is the meaning of this? Why have I run into this person now? And pull the thread and see where that leads.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do a couple more here, a few more.
All right. I thank you all. I am back. My entire electric just went out and it came back on. So maybe it's the high energy here. All right. All right. Here's one from Anonymous. He or she is taking a mediumship course and is progressing. But all of a sudden, I'm struggling to even find my basic reading skills. I struggle to even connect, and then it appears like I'm just snatching at info. How do I get beyond this?
Okay. Relax and stop trying. That's the problem. If it's not coming, there's some block there, or you're not meant to be doing this right now. Go back to the basics of building the power. That's the life force that flows through you. We go to each of our chakras and expand them. That's training in focus, training in working on your own energy field. Absolutely work on practices that balance the life force that flows in, the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, balancing those and getting to the point where you can feel when you're out of balance and when the life force is flowing in a balanced manner. Practice focusing on one thing, such as a candle or shapes or colors in your mind's eye for 3 to 5 minutes at a time, instead of saying, I have to hear from people across the veil. It's like learning to walk before you run, right? So learning to quiet the mind, and in all of these practices, be asking Spirit, is there any dense energy that I need to be clearing before I'm communicating with other people's loved ones? So that's a good start.
Awesome. All right. This one comes from Suzanne. She says she is estranged from her sons and she struggles not to feel sad. What kind of spiritual tools might you or Sanaya give that I can let that go with love?
This is a good one for the topic we'll get to a little later on spiritual bypassing. But for now, I say it is perfectly fine to feel sad. It's totally understandable to feel sad when you're estranged from your sons. Okay, so that's where I got stuck listening to that. What was part 2 of the question, Steph? Because I wanted to make sure that we didn't judge that there's something wrong with that just because you're spiritual. Of course, you would feel that way.
The second part was, in addition to that feeling that sad, what spiritual tools could I use to feel love around this and let them be, but with love?
This is the basic process of living the Awaken way that I talk about in my book, The Awaken Way, making the shift to I'm only human, this is my story, and I'm not real happy with the story right now, to here I am, a soul on the balcony of this theater looking down at my whole situation. There I am, there are my sons. I can see this from a higher perspective. I know that there are lessons in this. It's challenging, but I as a soul took this on. Now let me just be and sit in the silence and find that place of peace. And from that higher perspective, as you sit in the peace, you really come to know yourself as a soul and possibly even meet the souls of those sons and realize they're having their own lessons through this estrangement. And just having sat in the peace and realizing that at the soul level, you all love each other, you're eternally connected, you're going to take that back with you when you step back onto the stage of this story you're living. And it doesn't mean that the story necessarily changes, but the way you view it and the peace you bring into it comes back with you. Okay, I think we'll do one more, Steph, and then we'll move on to some other things I promised.
Okay. This might be really good, especially for after our community sharing here and gathering here tonight. This is from Kath. She says, does Sanaya have any advice as to how to sleep after being in a high vibrational state that has energized the whole body?
Absolutely. And it's, I hope what all of us will be doing tonight. And it's realizing that these 7 energy centers, your chakras, are processing all of this higher energy and they're expanded now. Your heart's probably way out here. Your crown chakra is very expanded. You're bringing in the higher energy. And my guides, Sanaya, have told us that when they come through, and they're coming through even right now, they're flooding us with a transmission of higher energy. It's why you feel uplifted, and it's why we can't sleep afterwards. So first thing you do is ask your guides to help you get back in balance. Ask spirit to sedate is a good word, the life force as it flows through you, to bring it to just the right flow state that will allow you to sleep well. So you're asking spirit to help you, and that holds the intention of moderating the life force just to the right rate or frequency for sleeping. Then, as you lie down, go through each of the chakras from the top to the bottom, one at a time, and visualize it coming back in to a nice, easy flow instead of being out and extended. When I do this practice, I usually will get as far as the solar plexus chakra, and I'm asleep already. Give it a try. Okay, thank you, my 3 moderators, for those questions. That went well. We're going to move on now to having spoken about what it is like to live awaken. How do we get there? And these are going to seem very self-evident, but taken as a whole, they truly make a difference. I was just at that Sacred Awakenings conference with Humanities team in Colorado, and a wonderful teacher named Lisa Campion, who has a book for empaths, gave a talk about this very kind of thing. And I said, wow, these are like very similar to the keys that I was going to be sharing tonight. So I hope you find these helpful. Perhaps, like I said, a little obvious. Okay, everybody seeing that? Yep, that's where we ended up. Where's my little button that allows me to advance? It's not here. Hang on, everybody. Oh, technology. Screen sharing stopped. Let's try this. Right here. That did it. Okay. So the first key is, let me pull this up over here. Hopefully you can read this. There we go. Feeling disconnected. Oh my goodness. The things that can help you, excuse me a second. I'm feeling disconnected, guys. All right. Deep breath. These are the things that cause the disconnection. And it's going to be very clear that to balance that with the opposite, but we'll go through them one by one. Stress from work. And sometimes we just have stressful jobs. So just being aware of it, you can bring in tools to lessen your stress. But if any of you are not feeling connected to your soul, or you're a medium and you're not having good connections, or you don't ever sense your loved ones in spirit, look at this list and see, do they apply to me? Hopefully, yes, none of my assistants are nodding their head yes right now. No stress from work. Okay, next. Lack of balance between work and play, bringing work home. I just had a big discussion with my husband about this because I've been getting a little bit out of balance with too much work. And my team chief here, Stephanie, is aware that I've said, hey, there are a couple of things we need to back off on because that balance is so important. And I like this word play because we are never too old to play. And that doesn't mean just sports. It can be any kind of play. We go and play with our dogs at least once, if not twice a day, just for the joy that brings. So if you're just all work and no play and they're out of balance, that will absolutely affect your connection with spirit. This is the point of this whole discussion here. Excessive or prolonged depression, anxiety, or grief. I don't need to get into how to overcome that, but if this applies to you in your life, absolutely this can affect your connection with spirit. Just know that. And that's why we have wonderful healers. That's why we have meditative practices, but to be aware that sometimes things happen in our lives and that we can't always make a connection with spirit until we clear that out. Poor or insufficient sleep at night and rest throughout the day. That will absolutely affect your connection with spirit. Nothing more I need to say about that one. Here we go. Lack of silence and peaceful environment, constant distractions. You can turn your phone off for several hours at a time to get in the flow. I've been reading a book lately about the fact that we so seldom get in the flow anymore because of this exact challenge right here. So imagine those in spirit trying to get our attention, and just when we're expanding our consciousness enough to sense them, ding, we go listen to our text. You know, there's a notification, or we turn the radio up even higher. So silence and peace and no distractions are hugely important for connecting with spirit and being able to focus on them instead of this world here. Chronic physical challenges will definitely get in the way of connecting with spirit. The good news is that if you train yourself to get into an expanded state of consciousness, then your pain goes away while you're in that expanded state. I know that when I channel spirit for at least 20 minutes after the channeling sessions, I feel no pain, no discomfort, no headaches. If I had cold symptoms, nothing. And I know that that's very common for most mediums or channels. So if you can train yourself to get into a meditative state, that alone will lessen your pain. But don't let pain stop you from meditating. That's the point. Okay. Unresolved deep-seated trauma. This is the human condition. Like I said, just this last weekend, as a result of working with a healer, discovered 2 blocks I didn't even know I had, which is why I recommend that all of us find energy workers and see them regularly, whether that's once a year or more often, just to say, hey, how about looking through my energy field and seeing what you come up with? How do you find such an energy worker? Please use word of mouth from somebody that says this person is really good. They actually see energy. They know what they're doing. They have good tools. But we're all walking wounded because we're human and we're dealing with other human people. So if you're noticing consistent patterns in your connection with spirit, ways you feel you could improve, there may be some blocks that someone else can help you clear. Poor diet, eating in excess. This just makes sense because if you're not feeding the instrument well, it's not going to be able to work well. It's going to block your connection with spirit. I know that, hang on a sec. Anytime we eat too much, our focus then becomes on how uncomfortable we feel. And also the life force is not flowing through us as clearly because it's focused on digestion. This is just common sense. Now, I've heard other people say you shouldn't eat meat, you should become a vegan. Personally, I know that I'm very happy with my connection based on how I eat now, and I'm not a vegan. So I believe this is a personal choice. I'm curious how my connection would change if I cut out those substances, but I don't feel a calling to do so. That's me personally. So my message here is listen to your own body, listen to your intuition, follow that, and experiment with your own energy field here. Chronic relationship challenges will definitely affect your connection with spirit. And that's an opportunity to work on your relationship. All of these things are not meant to judge anything. They're just a matter of, hey, is there a place here where I can make an adjustment for a better connection with my guides and my loved ones across the veil and my own higher self? So now, this is the opposite of pretty much most of those here. Here we go. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because they're pretty self-explanatory. So reduce your stress at work if you can. Balance work and play. Hopefully find some good healers holistically, right? We have energy workers and we have some people may need medication. I often get this question, can I still connect with my loved ones if I'm on antidepressants? Yes, you can. Don't let yourself think you can't. You may find a clearer connection if you weren't on them, but just flow with what is at the time and take care of yourself. Okay. Get sufficient sleep and rest. Find time for a peaceful environment. Get out in nature for sure. Find ways to deal with your physical challenges or minimize them. And deal with and heal deep-seated trauma. So all pretty self-explanatory again. Eat reasonable quantities of healthy food. I like the reasonable part there. Healing relationship challenges, surrounding yourself with supportive friends and family. This is the spiritual path, isn't it? Okay. This is a biggie. Sufficient hydration, especially with good water. You may not realize how important that is to a connection with spirit, because that water is also going to help the life force flowing through you. That's going to affect your aura. We always talk about giving the spirit the green light. Here I am, as energized as I can be, as healthy as I can be. And many times we're simply lacking enough good water. So check how much hydration you're getting. Get out in nature. I talked about this before, how important it is. Being in a very small enclosed environment of our RV as we travel around the country, it's stunning to me, the energetic difference. You just step out of that bus into nature every morning and feel the difference. So I hope you all will get fresh air regularly. And there we go. Exercise, incredibly important for making the connection across the veil because it keeps the life force flowing. So I'm not talking about necessarily getting out and jogging, but get out and get the blood flowing. Hugely important. And feeding your mind healthy vibrations. Read the headlines, but please don't allow yourself to get sucked into the drama of the news. That's what they want to happen, those who write the news. Balance that with something uplifting, like the daily messages from Spirit. Okay. If any of you have any questions about any of those, put them in the Q&A right now and we'll handle them in just a minute while I share an uplifting story. There may not be any questions. I feel they're pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to summarize that whole section by saying, people say, well, I don't understand why I'm not connecting. Go back over that list. How's your diet? How's your exercise? How's your relationship? How's your overall health? How's your stress at work? Are you balancing work and play? It's not all about how clear is your mind, how big is your energy field. It's all related. So we're going for the whole picture. And it's not, again, about being perfect either. But if those items are in balance, your connection is much more likely to happen. So take care of yourself. Stephanie, anybody put a question in about any of that?
Actually, yes, there were several questions about why can't I connect? I've been trying so hard. I've been several of those questions.
Yep. And again, it's go down that list and look at how you are there. And then, are you spending regular time every day simply watching your thoughts and focusing on what's arising with a singular focus of, I want to hear from a specific loved one or my guides? I had a man write and email me and say, I've done this 10 days in a row and I'm not getting anything. And I had to smile with compassion and say, you know, it might take more than 10 days. This is a commitment. It's a path. It's a journey that we're on, and there are no set timelines. But along the way, as you take care of yourself, like that list talks about, you will increase your intuition. You will find more peace. You'll be healing relationships, healing trauma. And maybe that's supposed to happen before you make the connection. Please think about that. Okay. Anything else, Stephanie?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Great. All right, so that's that section there. Let's move on to now. This is a beautiful story that I just heard that I know will affect a lot of you who have beloved furry family members. This woman says, I just had to share what happened to me this morning. I have an almost 16-year-old Yorkie, a Yorkshire Terrier. And on Friday, the doctor will be coming to the house to help her cross over. This has been a very difficult decision for my husband and I to make. Heartbreaking to say the least, but it's time. She's having a hard time walking, going to the bathroom. She's eating less and less. She seems very uncomfortable most of the time. And when she looks at me, I feel she's telling me she's ready to move on. I've been there. How about some of you with a beloved pet? She wrote, I decided to use your Inspire button on your Awakened Way app this morning for guidance. With my little baby sitting in my lap, I centered myself and asked Spirit, what is the best move for me in this moment here and now? This is the message I received on the app. And let me say, when I started reading it, my breath caught in my throat, and then I just started crying. Here comes what happens when you push that Inspire button. There are 6,000 messages in there. And based on this situation, this message randomly came up. Spirit said, as you prepare for one you love to pass to the next chapter of life, you struggle. It is not easy for you to let go. They are off on a new journey. For them, it is a fresh start to be filled with wonder. For you, you are left with a new start as well, filled with absence, if this is how you choose to see it. See with new eyes. See through their eyes and rejoice in this passage. Walk at their side in your mind's eye and marvel at the wonders. They are still alive, perhaps not in the sense that you know here, but more fully alive than ever before. Feel the love that surrounds them. Is this not what you have always wanted for your loved ones? Rejoice. You grieve only for yourself. Do you see this? Shift your consciousness to that of your loved one, and there can be no grief, envy, perhaps grief, but your time will come in due time. For now, a small shift in perspective will make your journey less challenging. It is all about perspective. You are so very loved. There is no need to suffer. Can you imagine how perfect that is? And I love sharing it with all of you because it applies to all of us, no matter if it's a furry family member or a loved one in human form. But what's interesting is that message that came up randomly was from December 2nd, 2012. So a long time ago. And she said, it was in 2012 that our puppy came into our lives. So just another God wink. So that kind of stuck out to me too. I truly feel Spirit was letting me know it's okay. We are making the right decision here. She says, I am an attorney and the type of person that needs to be knocked over the head to hear the message sometimes. This was definitely one of those times for which I'm so grateful to have gotten the message. So thank you to you and your team, both spirit and human, for spreading these messages of love and kindness. I will keep on my meditative practice and have a feeling my baby will always be close by. Yeah, no doubt about it. Isn't that great? So I hope you all have the app and use that Inspire button. I use it too from time to time, and it's really stunning how meaningful and timely those messages are. Okay. We did say we were going to talk about powerful examples of how seeing the words you use in common language change things for you. We already talked about living awakened versus being awakened. Another one Spirit talked about last month in their channeling session, and that was instead of I surrender. I give up, feeling that that's weakness. Being surrendered. If you weren't here with us last month, you might want to get that one, or just remember that. I've written it down and I'm using that all the time. I am surrendered. It's an ongoing state. It's not something you just do over and over again. It's a way of living that says, Spirit, pull my strings. Let me just flow with whatever you present to me. So that's another one. And then there was just a third one, just to get you thinking about phrases and how they automatically bring a feeling to us. The phrase is rest in peace. We say that when someone dies, oh, rest in peace. But really, that comes a little scary. That to me comes with a scary feeling. Like we even put it when we show drawings of cemeteries, R.I.P. It's scary. It goes on a gravestone. But really, isn't that what we want to do here now? Rest in peace. Wolf's final poem, may peace and tranquility flow like water. I want rest in peace to not be a scary thing. I want you all to rest in peace now. That's my point. So just pay attention to your word choice. Don't be afraid of words, but use them to your advantage, just like not my anger, right? Maybe even not my craving. I think I've shared here before how I was working on a book and suddenly I had the biggest craving for sweets. And I was like, where's that coming from? And there's Ty across the room, stands up, walks to the refrigerator, pulls out an Oreo and pops it in his mouth. And I said, oh, not my craving. All right, that was short and sweet. I promised you this evening a story about one of our Awaken Way community members who was healed by claiming her personal power. I know you're going to love this story. So she is a follower of my work. Her name is Marie. She allowed me to record her sharing a personal story that is in our book, Mediumship. My Mediumship book from Sacred Stories Publishing has 30 stories in the center submitted by people who had after-death communication and mediumship examples of their own, not just mine. And then I brought on 12 of the contributors to a special podcast last year to share their stories. And everybody had 3 minutes. And Marie shared her story. And it was different than everybody else's. It wasn't the standard after-death communication. It had to do with how she was healed with help from across the veil. Well, after we recorded it, she reached out to me by email and she said, Suzanne, I'm not comfortable that my story was really out of sync with everybody else's. Will you please delete it from the recording before you air that podcast? And I felt into that and I wrote back and I said, I can do that, but it didn't need to be like everybody else's. It was beautiful and I hope you will reconsider and let us include it. And she did, and I was so happy because the comments that came in showed that it really struck a chord in a lot of people, and it was the very fact that it was different and that she spoke from the heart that really helped people. So she wrote this story, and I'm so eager to share with you what happened. Okay, she said, after receiving your response to my email encouraging me to leave my recording as is, I began to calm down. And then it was then I realized I felt better than I had in a long time. Remember, this is a section on reclaiming our personal power. She clearly had doubts. What will other people think? She was feeling insecure, but she went ahead and said, okay, air it anyway. My angels kept telling me all would be well and I would be happily surprised by how it went. But I was shocked. It was way better than I had imagined or experienced. It felt like someone else was speaking. She shared with me that afterwards, something felt very different. Suddenly, she saw 5 or 6 lines of black images in front of her solar plexus. That's our point of power and personal will. She said the word that came to mind when she saw this blackness in front of her, literally saw it, was soot. And then suddenly, she found herself outside her body, looking at it from the right side, and could see the black stuff in front of her solar plexus. Then she came back into her body, saw it one more time, and then it disappeared. She wrote, I felt overwhelmed, and even though exhausted, I had to walk and walk to walk off this energy. Honestly, my first thought when I saw all the black stuff was, I'm going to die. I was assured again by the angels, all was well. Over time, I came to realize this was letting go of the fear and negativity I had held on to all my life. I suddenly felt this need to get rid of any books that expressed doubt about who I am as a soul or were very rigid about how things work spiritually. I wanted to listen and trust inwardly and not rely on others. Not that I don't enjoy hearing different ideas, but I knew I needed to hear my own soul and again, trust. Really good advice. As time went by, I calmed down and began to embrace this new day. My loved ones in spirit visited me with much joy. The atmosphere around this time was of a significant celebration. I felt them cheering me onward. My solar plexus has been calm, and I feel better than I have in a very long time. I'm a little quicker to catch my fear or negativity and correct it. I'm joyful, grateful, and so blessed. And just notice this came from finally not squashing that inner voice and just having the courage that comes from the soul to say, okay, I'm going to share my story with the world. I just really want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my experiences and learn so much along the way. The Awaken way has changed my life in so many ways. For example, learning to rise above and get a bigger picture has been very helpful in getting unstuck. It changed my life. I've heard you talk about surrender, and I'm so grateful. This keeps me going. And that's why we do these sessions every month. It keeps us going with reminders that even though we know this at a deeper level, we see we're not alone in this, right? And hopefully Marie's story has empowered you to know that when you put your stories out there, she was able to visually see it, but energetically, that's what's happening. A beautiful exercise for releasing dense energy that you no longer need is to visualize, I believe I got this from my dear friend Annie Bond, a cloud in front of you. And as you exhale through the heart or the solar plexus, like Marie did, exhale any fear, any trauma, even if you don't know what it is, blow it into that cloud. And you can visualize it at first as blackness. And as that cloud now becomes black, release it, let it go, and let the sun transmute it. And now bring in another cloud and breathe into it. And as you do this, it's no longer black, but it may be gray. And you're releasing that trauma. So we can heal ourselves. I love that Marie saw it as soot. You can see it as smoke. It doesn't matter. Your visualization moves energy. And you just keep this practice going and releasing the clouds until that cloud is now white. And then take a while to process this, a few days or weeks, and see what has changed for you. You can do that simple process anytime. All right. Let's see. I did promise you a discussion on spiritual bypassing. I'm not going to read you the whole exchange that I had with another member of our community, but she watched my recent video on YouTube called Fear Not. And she felt like part of me was making light of things that were happening in the world, such as the war in Ukraine. She said she didn't see how it helps to think of things only on the soul level when people are truly suffering and dying. She was worried that that video seemed like spiritual bypassing. I went back and listened to that video, talked to my guides, reached out to Lynette, and I said, we're not spiritual bypassing here. And we agree. If you go back and look at the video, it's talking about being aware of our fears and not being swamped by them. May we always fully feel all aspects of being human. That's like the question that came up earlier this evening, the estrangement from the woman's sons. That's going to hurt. To not feel that hurt is to not honor the human condition and relationships and the challenges that hopefully lead to growth. So we feel them, but the Awaken way says we can make the shift to the soul's perspective, as we discussed, get the higher perspective, sit in peace as a respite, as a much needed balance, relief, and release. Because if we stay in the chaos, we can't hear the insights. We can't heal ourselves. So we go to that place of peace and calm. We breathe in the higher energy, and now we come back into the chaos and we act. If we can change a situation that's bringing us pain, by all means do so. If we can help with situations around the world in our own way, by all means do so. So there are spiritual teachers that say, no, we're supposed to be here and be happy all the time. I am pretty sure I have never said that, and I don't ever want to say that. It's this world is about being fully human, diving in and doing our best to shine the light. But we find the balance by rising above, breathing in the peace, and bringing that back with us. All right. Very important distinction. All righty. Okay. Passing over that. I'm looking through my notes here. I think it's time for us to do a little healing session and a channeling session. What do you think? Sound good? Yes. Okay. Let me take a sip of water here. So we've been having some pretty wonderful healings physically from people who feel Sanaya's energy. That's increasing more and more as I'm able to handle more and more of their energy. So if you're in need of healing, know that you will receive higher energy in the next few minutes. You've been receiving it all along this evening, but more concentrated now. But you are a healer too. Why? Because we are always channeling and funneling the life force. So I'd like you to think of someone that is in need of healing. I'm thinking specifically of Wolf's stepmother, Beth. We always hold her in our highest energy while she's on her journey with leukemia. But take the focus off yourself and focus on somebody else as you simply pull in the life force and send it to anyone in need. Yes, those you're thinking of, but everyone in this connected field of consciousness. And we'll add tonight to our world, right? As we were talking about earlier. So as we do that now, just imagining the life force coming in from below and above, balanced, right? And then out. You can hold your hands up if you like, or just send it through your heart. As you do that, I'll be doing it too, but I'm also asking Sanaya to come in and bring a message for all of us. I have no idea what that message will be, but we're just going to trust that it's what we as a collective group can benefit from this evening. So let's begin now, and they'll come in when the time is right. So let's take a nice breath together, and we'll begin. Good evening to all of you who have been here with us since the beginning of this session. We do so enjoy watching you as your energy fields turn brighter throughout this time together. Perhaps you feel it as a bit of tingling and the higher energy of which you questioned earlier how to turn it back a bit. But do know that each time you sit in the rarefied energy of spirit, you are learning to take on more and more of this, which is why the exercise and the good habits are so important. For the physical body must be trained to hold this higher energy. And so it is, as now you are in training to this vibration. Suzanne has spoken to you this evening about having released certain blocks of which she was unaware, and suddenly becoming aware of those in spirit constantly being around. Yes, it can be quite surprising to suddenly have old habits changed in an instant. This is possible for all of you, for these dense pockets of energy are like boulders on a highway that at times are too heavy for you to move yourself. But with the gift of someone who comes into your life with the ability to help you clear them, suddenly new patterns emerge instantly. You may ask for this, but hear us well. Your guides wish for you to have healing. You must first believe that there are patterns that could stand to be changed and put out to the universe the request that healing take place. But you must be willing to look within and see that all is not perfect and never will be. We have spoken in the past about perfection. It is not the goal. The goal is for you to be able to embody more and more of the life force in a state of flow that allows you to know your innate connection with all that is. That includes guides and angels and your loved ones and your domesticated animals across the veil. How can it be that they are here all the time? We did feel a bit of pushback from some of you who said, I do not wish them seeing me all the time. I do not want them around me all the time. But we wish you to know that at a deeper level than this physical world, it can be no other way, for you are connected to all dimensions energetically. It is all a matter of where you put your focus. For now, most of you are focused very intently on the physical world. However, there are worlds beyond the physical world, and yet it is one world. That is why there is only here. As long as you delineate between physical and non-physical, you are putting up a barrier. Here is yet another example of how your word choice limits you. What if you no longer say the physical and non-physical world, there are two worlds, and you say instead, there is only one world, there is only here. All expressions of God are here now, for we are all this in this one shared field. Then of course your loved ones are here, not in a separate place, but here in one unified state. This is truth. And yet it is also true that in your perspective, there are two worlds. This is the paradox. And so you can recognize the two by realizing that using consciousness, you can shift at any point. And your loved ones who seemed far away are here as you shift to oneness. And as you shift back to the duality of physical and non-physical, they are in a different world. We do not wish to confuse you, but we are reigniting in you the awareness of how it truly works. When you come to trust and know that your loved ones are here, can hear you, can answer you from this state of union that you enjoy eternally, as you come to trust this, you will begin to sense their presence more and more. Trust us that they are speaking to you, reaching out to you, and are not frustrated with you if you do not sense them now. They have all the patience in the world, for they know from their perspective now, on their side of the veil, that as the veil parts, there is only one world. And it is by sitting in energy such as this and continuing your spiritual path as you are doing, by educating yourself and gaining experience and engaging higher consciousness, you will come to fully trust this truth and engage with your loved ones with greater awareness. As you feel frustrated, recognize you are in human mode. and that by finding the peace within, the frustration will lessen and your connections will increase. It can be no other way. We thank you for joining us once again. We also are always with you. We are higher beings that belong to all. You may give your guides separate names, but as we have stated in the past, there is no difference between your guides and yourself when you understand it is all spirit. You are so very loved. We will be with you always, but see you next time. Okay. Wow. Okay. I hope that was a good message for all of you. I hope that all of you felt some good healing energy. I'm tuning in now, and they're asking me to wrap this up with a little discussion we talked about. I remember I said if we have time, we will get to the part about our greatest opportunities for growth, and that's our interpersonal relationships. I recently had an interaction with my two siblings that pointed out to me how three people raised by the same parents can see things completely differently. And it was very, very frustrating. And you know, you reach out to one sibling wanting some support, and the other one says, well, I don't see it that way at all. And it got me to thinking again about how we all see through different lenses, just like wearing different sunglasses, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And just as I was having these realizations that, again, how can we expect everybody to think like us? We want to make the other person wrong. We want to be right. That's the human way. But from each person's perspective, they're right. Just as I was having these realizations, Lynette reached out to me. I'm going to share my screen for one last time here. She sent me a text. Let's see. Where's my little picture? Gosh darn it. Oh, I want to share. Oh, now it came up just as I escaped. Hang on. I need to go here. Let me go back one. She sent me a text and she said, look familiar? It was the disco ball. How many of you have heard me share the lesson from Spirit that we are like lenses on a disco ball? There's one light of source shining through all of us, yet we're all these individual mirrors there of the one source. And every one of us, 8 billion of us, facing different directions. So not a single one of us, even if it's a doppelganger, like the question that came up earlier, is going to think alike or see alike. And so, of course, they're going to seem wrong to us. It's all relative. So just as I'm having these realizations and my issue with my siblings, Lynette sends me this out of the blue. Hey, look at what we just found, this friend she's with. So later that day, I'm going for a walk around a town we were driving through. We're walking with our dogs, and I come to this storefront. You can see my shadow taking the picture. Look at the storefront. Disco Dolphin. I'm counting one big disco ball, one medium-sized disco ball, one smaller one, and that grocery cart is filled with disco balls. I hope you all will learn to connect the dots when Spirit shows you these synchronicities of just what you were thinking about. It comes into your life. This is how the web works. It's how Spirit says, yes, you are paying attention. We love that you're thinking about these things. Look how we put this in your mind. I've been seeing so many connections lately. Do you ever have the experience where just as you're reading something, a lyric on the music will read the exact same word? Or, or it's just as you're saying something, the lyrics on the music say the exact same word. This is one of the ways Spirit just is constantly connecting the web for me. But please get in the habit of noticing connections. It will help increase your sense of connection with all that is and come to know how supported you are by the universe. Most of all, as we wrap this up, please come to know that the spirit world has all the patience in the world with you. And whatever is happening to you right now actually is not only an opportunity, but for your benefit. So it may not seem like that, but if you're not making a connection with spirit, it's going to lead to something. Trust me in this. But we're glad that spirit led you here this evening. I want to send thanks to my team for helping us here. Hope to see all of you down the road somewhere, either online or in person. And we just thank you so much for being part of this community. I hope you found some things of value tonight. May our lessons be as painless as possible. I know that when I have scary and fearful things happen, more people join us, but may we not have scary, fearful things in the next month. May we learn naturally just from the process of being human. Okay. Love you all, and we'll see you later. Take care.